Jake Fisher of the Stein Line is reporting that the Milwaukee Bucks are big game hunting. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. What do you guys think? I really think it's either Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan's probably the cheaper option, which would be like a Bobby Portis, and you could probably do the deal for a DeMar DeRozan being Bobby Portis, not even Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., or Cole Anthony, plus Gary Harris, or other small contracts, while a deal for Zach LaVine would have to require both Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis. But despite holding an 11-16 record, the Milwaukee Bucks front office has pivoted their strategy at the trade deadline, signaling to rival war rooms across the league that they intend to be buyers, not sellers. Their directive is clear: bolster the rotation around franchise cornerstone Giannis Antetokounmpo and aggressively pursue a contending window in a wide-open Eastern Conference this year, even in the absence of a firm timetable for their star, Giannis, return from injury. Before we continue, let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What deal would you do and why? Like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this, and go check out my work at hoopshype.com. Having previously shut down any dialogue involving Antetokounmpo, the Bucks brass is now broadcasting a new direction. As one rival GM assessed to Jake Fisher of the Stein Line, Milwaukee has convinced him they are going big game hunting to reconfigure the roster. Their primary objective is to upgrade the wing, specifically seeking a two-way player to slot between Antetokounmpo and rim protector this past offseason acquisition, Myles Turner, improving both spacing and perimeter defense. Basically, they're looking for their Chris Middleton replacement that they've sought since moving Chris Middleton. This aggressive posture is complicated by a significant deficit of draft capital. The Bucks lack an unencumbered first-round pick to dangle until 2031, forcing any meaningful acquisition to be executed by absorbing high salary contracts. This has led them to revisit the potential fit of Sacramento Zach LaVine, whose offensive firepower remains attractive despite his max-level deal. Another name high on Milwaukee's scouting board is Portland's Jerami Grant, a versatile forward who's been a persistent target and is having a rebound year after having a down year last year. And he does have 2 years and roughly $70 million remaining after the season. The Trailblazers already control Milwaukee's first rounders in 2028, 2029, 2030 from the Damian Lillard deal. So you understand that there is a financial commitment there. He is on the year averaging 20 points in 30 minutes a night, 43.8% from the field, 39.5% from three, 86% free throw, 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, about a steal a game, and half a block a night on 2.5 turnovers. Right now, his net rating is negative 3.7, but that is basically his best net rating since his first year with the Blazers. And at this point, he is 31 years old, and he's someone who, for his career, is honestly, since becoming a starter, a 20-point per game scorer. Not the defender he once was, but still a +1 when he tries. The Bucks' canvassing of the trade market extends further. They have maintained a long-standing interest in the Miami Heat wing Andrew Wiggins and have regularly called about him during his tenure with the Golden State Warriors, and previously evaluated Dejounte Murray before his trade to New Orleans. Murray, however, is currently rehabbing a torn Achilles suffered in late January, with a potential return next month in January, which would be a full year since that injury had occurred. Milwaukee has done due diligence on defensive-minded guard Marcus Smart, though the Lakers, who acquired him via the buyout, are considered unlikely to move him. Nevertheless, skepticism persists among rival executives. Many believe Milwaukee's most prudent path is to proactively explore the trade market for Antetokounmpo before his situation becomes more complex. One decision maker framed the current stalemate as a staring contest between the Bucks and potential suitors. Some around the league question if Milwaukee's reluctance stems from a concern that Antetokounmpo's market may not yield the expected historic return. It is noted that the former MVP has not submitted a formal trade request and is under contract through 2027. Let me hear your thoughts. The rest of the video will be our prior discussions on the Milwaukee Bucks' interest in Zach LaVine. Also, a trade for Jerami Grant and Dejounte Murray before we do that. So Jerami Grant's making $32 million this season. So that would have to involve similarly, it would have to be Bobby Portis, because it's more than the DeMar. Because DeMar DeRozan, you could do a deal where it's Bobby Portis, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, and maybe one more contract, or you can replace Cole Anthony with Kevin Porter Jr. and do it with those three. I think you'd have to add a fourth player to do the Jerami Grant deal, while a Dejounte Murray was on a cheap deal, and we just don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. Dejounte this season is only on $30 million, so that is something that could be realistic.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I wanted to talk about our boy Zach LaVine. And what do I have to say today about Zach LaVine? Milwaukee Bucks are 11-15, and they are performing their due diligence on Zach LaVine as a desperation move to salvage what might be turning into a disappointing season. And I talked about this earlier in the year, and the only way I see this happening is if this is the last Hail Mary attempt to save Giannis Antetokounmpo staying in Milwaukee. They currently rank 20th in net rating with a negative 2.9, and they shockingly 20th in defensive rating, 118. Their offense also lags at 20th with 115.1. This just shows a team that's mediocre on both ends of the floor. They need perimeter scoring to diversify an attack that's become too predictable. LaVine offers that specific skill set. It would have to be Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis, and I believe Gary Harris for Kyle Kuzma. And this itself, for a guy who's averaging 21 points on 39% from 3 on 7 attempts a game, he provides the floor spacing in the shot. Oh, I didn't mean to hit that. Shot creation that is necessary to open the lanes for Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, and whoever it may be. However, the Kings also know that Zach LaVine has the negative asset or a neutral asset trade value due to the fact that he's on that $47.4 million salary. So this could be the cheapest deal that they could get for an all-star level player. And for a Kings that's already bottom tier, losing further assets to move a productive scorer is a difficult proposition. So if it allows them to clear the books and for them to get a guy back like Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis on more cost control contracts, then it helps for the inevitable rebuild that has to come. So the rest of the video will be what we talked about previous. Let me know your thoughts.
Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I wanted to talk about a report coming from my colleague Michael Scotto at HoopsHype. Yep, go check out our work at hoopshype.com. And he put out that the Bucks are keeping tabs on a potential Zach LaVine trade. And you're thinking, why would that? First off, the Kings have been connected to Kyle Kuzma for years, and Vivek Ranadivev and Kyle Kuzma just went in together on a volleyball league. And if you're wondering how the team or what would the trade be, basically the trade would have to be Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, and Gary Harris for Zach LaVine. This is not even getting into the draft picks, which you can tell me, what would you think the draft picks would be? Now, let me tell you what Michael Scotto wrote. So this is what Scotto put out on hoopshype.com. Basically, the Milwaukee Bucks have conducted background due diligence on Zach LaVine and others around the league as usual. However, nothing is imminent as Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo nears a return from a low-grade abductor strain. Which, obviously, we all knew this part. Now, moving forward, what we know about the Bucks situation is if Milwaukee should become interested in LaVine, that Kyle Kuzma, Vivek Ranadivev news and link is something that we've all been aware of for the last few years, as I had just aforementioned. LaVine is averaging almost 22 points this year, or so far, who's averaged 22 points in his Kings tenure on efficient 51% and 43% from 3. And as a King so far, he's owed $47.5 million this season and just under $49 million in a player option for the 2026-27 season. So does that complicate things? I wouldn't say it complicates things, but it makes it very interesting when you look at it. And if you're a fan of the Bucks, I think they're a team that is in a position to be able to make a move, especially with the salaries that they have. Personally, if they could get themselves Zach LaVine, I mean, I've loved what Kevin Porter, I know Kevin hasn't been the healthiest, but Kevin Porter, Ryan Rollins, and I really, first off, and Cole Anthony, I think they've done an amicable job. I really like what they've been able to do as the team's guards. And they're more point guards, okay? And you would still be able to keep them if you were to do this trade. Sorry, I had an alarm go, but I think Bobby Portis is just a little bit starting to get over the hill. So if you're telling me you can, I think Kyle Kuzma's having a better year than he did last year. So with all of that being said, this would be, I think, an upgrade move. Like, if you're telling me you were able to turn Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton into Myles Turner, or I guess not Damian Lillard and Kyle Kuzma at this point it would be, but you get what I'm saying. If you're telling me you were able to turn those two into Myles Turner and Zach LaVine, I think a lot of us would agree that that's a good deal. That's a deal that, especially with the draft pick situation given, now that you add that core to what I mentioned earlier, the Bucks team that is playing a lot better than what people would give you credit. And if I pulled up the Bucks stats right here, the Bucks this season are a team that, outside of Giannis, look, we've talked a bunch at Ryan Rollins. If you guys have been following this channel, you know the videos we made discussing how amazing Ryan has been this season and how enjoyable it's been for me, just as a defender, as a scorer, as a creator. He's really been a part of this team in a way that I'm unhappy, and I think anyone who's a fan of the squad is impressed by how consistent. And shout out Rajon Rondo and the training staff for that. Even Kuzma's had some moments with Myles Turner. He's been the 3-and-D guy that they've needed, while also you have Gary Trent, Derry Bird, AJ Green. I know Kevin Porter's played one game, but he was good last year. Cole Anthony's been solid. So then I think once you start getting down the bench, that's where, like, after that, like, Taurean Prince, like, he's still, like, he's had his moments, but it's not like what he's been prior. So I sit here and I wonder, okay, if this deal were to be available and you're the Bucks, why wouldn't you do it? I think this is one of those times where it makes sense. Now, if you're the Kings, let's shift this conversation over to the Kings. I mean, Kyle Kuzma's contract's very affordable. He actually, in theory, would help solve some of the issues that you guys have, which defensively, in theory, but at the same time, I just want to be clear that I don't think he would be this perfect solution, because I think the team is just kind of flawed. But man, it's also such a weird time, like, to be a Kings fan, because I like Doug Christie as a coach, but it goes to show this is just not a good constructed roster at all. Like, it's a very, very bad. And if I'm a guy like anyone on this team, we've seen how frustrated LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis have been. I really think that's because this team's just not, and they're not even playing their best defender in Keon Ellis. It's really mind-numbing and head-scratching when you see them, because what is supposed to happen right here, like we've talked about this before, this is just the team that looks like the rule of insanity, doing different things and expecting different results, which to me is just almost like mind-numbing, because does that even work? Is it even worth it? It just feels like they're just dragging the drain, the Kings. Because I said already, if you're the Bucks, you do this deal. If you're the Kings, you do this deal because you need something, and it feels like the team's fracturing. But outside of that, yeah, like, I can't realistically see a reason why you would do that. Obviously, like, the Kings, like, right here, I guess in theory, again, we just said it, Bobby Portis, Kuzma, better cost control contracts, you'd be able to get off of Gary Harris's. But then again, it's a weird one where, does it really improve your situation? Does it really make anything better? I don't know if it does. That's, with that all said, I don't know. I just think it's one of those situations that we won't know what happens till maybe post December 15th, probably January. I know the restriction for recently signed players is lifted on the 15th of December, but that's still too early for most teams to do a trade. And if things were really to start to happen, I would think it'd be closer to January or post New Year's. just because that's how the way the NBA operates. But I think it is something to monitor, especially if you're a fan of either team, if you want to see the reset, or if you want to see the Bucks continue to get, like, this is a really good Bucks team. Giannis Antetokounmpo looks insane. I think they did a good job of retooling the roster the best that they could and finding moves like this if they are able, because a player of LaVine's caliber won't be this cheap typically. And given the circumstances, I would say this makes sense if you were to jump on it. Let me know your thoughts.